Hello and welcome to another episode of the BAME Health Collaborates. Together We Can podcast and show. I'm your host, Emily Blake. And this evening we are going to be joined by the founder, the brains of this amazing organisation, Micheline. Please join us in the studio.
Hi, how are you, Emily?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much. How are you?
I am well, and it's such an honor to be interviewed by you,
Oh, thank you.
and welcome you into the BHC family as well as our community lead for media. And we are really pleased to have you.
Oh, it's my honour, my pleasure. Thank you so much. And I know you've been so busy today. So thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself to everyone, because without you, we wouldn't have the BAME Health Collaborative. So let's start off by explaining to everyone exactly what it is and how you came up with this important idea.
I will, but before I even start, I just want to say thank you to TV3 Bangala. I mean, they have just stepped in to help us with these podcasts, and our ambassador Monu, it has been there. I just want to say a big thank you. That goes without saying. But to come back to your initial question, um, look, I am from the BAME community. I'm quite proud of that. I'm unapologetic for that as well. Um, but I am also have a background in health, a background in digital, and I'm also have a background in law, and also education. So I really have a broad spectrum, and I have my own little companies that I have been managing for over coming up now to 16 years, and it has its benefits. However, as I walk around and I look around, I can see that many of the BAME communities are suffering in one way or the other, whether it's education, whether it's the disadvantage in healthcare, whether it's the opportunities in media and entertainment, whether it is in journalism, whether it is even for retail and sales and banking and finance. I mean, you just choose any of those disciplines, and then you start to wonder what has significantly gone wrong here. Um, and is it what is missing? What is the missing ingredient? And so, hence, I've been looking at it for quite some time, and it has caused me grave concerns. But when COVID came around, I knew that I had to use all of my experiences, qualifications, and skills and give back to the community.
Amazing. So this idea, this collaborative came about actually because of the pandemic that we were facing. So what was the kind of the reasoning behind it, and what were you hoping to do when you created this collaboration?
COVID has been very damaging, and very damaging in the context that it has impacted on us economically. It doesn't matter of your background, it doesn't matter of who you are. It has actually affected us. But more so when you look at the deaths, the dying, the sick. So the people who are really critically ill and there's no hope for them, the ones who have passed, and the frontline workers, and who are impacted more than anything else, not only in the UK, but all over the world, is the BAME communities. And then you look for data, rich data that can help you to identify why. Because for everything that happens, everything that goes wrong, you need to know the why factor. And you can't even get that rich data for you to improve. And then you start to ask fundamental questions. Are we at the table? Are we sitting at the table when decisions are made? Or are we only receiving? So BAME communities are starting, we are only receiving what everyone has decided should be. And we ought to be really sitting at the table and helping to make decisions that will benefit our communities. Instead of only being the ones to receive, you make that decision, this is what should happen. And then we just say, okay, thank you. Um, But we have so many experts. We have so many dynamic experts from all over the world, from all over Africa, all over India, all over China, all over Singapore, name it, a wealth of different nationalities and communities who have come here, invited to come here to work in healthcare. And, we need to be part of that discussion, to improve the health, not only for us, but for the next generation and the generation to come, and to improve how we actually relate to each other and respond to crisis. And as COVID rears its head again, and it's coming, I hope there'll be some learning for us in the BAME communities about protecting our own, having more communication in our different languages, for us to understand the impact of this. And this is not a BAME problem. This is our problem. Because if you look at the workforce or what we do, carers who's going into people's residence, how many of those are from the Caucasian population? Most of those are Eastern Europeans, Blacks. It's never ever only one group of people. Yeah.
Mm.
You look at those who clean the roads, look at those who drive the buses, so it impacts on us all, whether you want to accept it or not. It impacts on us one way or the other. The link is there. So we all need to be in this together. We all need to ask the questions why, and say, we don't want this to happen again.
Mm. And I think you put that perfectly about, making sure that we are at the table. I love when you say that, because it's so important. And we see it a lot, that lack of representation for different cultures, from people with different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. So do you hope that from your collaborative, you will actually inspire, could be the NHS, to actually ensure that the people making the decisions, that is a diverse group?
Yes. Well, I think one of the great things BHC has accomplished, and I know to some it may seem that we are not really making an impact, but it's better to actually and become a collaborator than to dismantle a process and you don't have a proper solution in place. Yeah, we need to collaborate. We need to build healthy partnerships. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
that is necessary. Yeah. So when you look at it, we have nice guidelines where it's developed pathways and journeys and clinical guidelines for different parts of health, different aspects of health, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cancer, whether it's dialysis, whether it's dermatology treatments, whether it's access to health. There is this significant body of work, and we have been invited to actually contribute. The other thing is when we have people who are champions within the NHS have said, okay, send me what you have so that we can look at it, and they are influential in the NHS and say, look, we want to know more. Then that is a really healthy option for us, because then we could actually be part of that discussion. One of our ambassadors, Zingang Wang, who you introduced recently, has got us into Parliament Week. So we are doing great stuff with Monel, doing these podcasts of our different ambassadors and our different trustees. This is something that we actually could put into our library of different opinions about why BHC matters. And actually, I've been sending them out to people for them to actually look and listen to other ambassadors, other trustees' perspective of why we need a BAME Health Collaborative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about engaging people with those conversations, isn't it? Because, do you think that people actually took the news seriously, that BAME people are more affected from coronavirus? Do you think that message was actually received perhaps as serious as it should have been?
Well, initially, with any pandemic, people are much more looking at the key priorities: saving lives, ensuring that you control that spread, is the management of that outbreak, the management of that whole system, looking at it financially, looking at the whole process with the resources. Is a whole aspect. Where do you have the location for your gravely ill? Do you have enough ICU? What do you have in order to meet the demand? However, within that management itself, within each of the organization, example, when we had that nurse who died and she was pregnant, yeah, one would have thought that, seen at that particular stage, in my opinion, I think management should have said, hey, I think you need to work from home or some sort of alternative, because we know she died from the COVID. And I think some of these deaths, it's very sad, and to the families, my deepest and dearest condolences. BHC would like to extend our condolences to all those families. And those deaths really rocked me in the context that I couldn't believe it, because one of the ladies, Juliet, I knew as a midwife, and I couldn't believe it, and few others, doctors and stuff like that. I was in shock about it. But however, moving on from that, the risk assessments that were developed, so that those come in place, and they're very much tailored to address BAME health conditions, because we do suffer from a few conditions that the proportion of the society may not have the same outcome. We like our rice, we like our jerk chicken, we like our curries, we're not really salad types. If you tell us that, we still want a big piece of yam and cassava and a bit of sweet potato, but it's not proportionate. And it does have an impact on our health and well-being. Too much of it, too much of everything is never good. So those risk assessments were created. However, those risk assessments, one recognize now that they're a little bit too generic. And BAC have some fantastic doctors and healthcare professionals who are involved, and they have the expertise, clinically and non-clinically, to actually contribute to how we can look at those risk assessments, and so that they don't have that generic feel, but have a much more tailored and individualized approach.
Now, you've said so much there that is so important, and I'm really glad that you've actually come up with this organisation, because I do think there's a lot of work to be done, and I think it's so important that it is a collaborative effort. And I love that you've called it that, and your ethos behind it. It's about engaging everyone who may be affected, may not know that they may be affected, because exactly, as you say, we all have a different requirement for our health. We're not all the same. And looking at your supporters are all from very, a wide range of diverse backgrounds. Why do you think that is?
You cannot, I think it has to do with my history, and the way that my mom Hazel raised me, is that, you cannot really fight any battle, on your own. Art of War is this fantastic book. I'm not promoting books, but it teaches you some great lessons in life. Yeah. And in health, and thinking there's a really multicultural, diverse community, and we need everyone to be part of it. We need all to contribute to improve the health and well-being for the benefit of us all. If we start to isolate and say, in this organization, I only want people who are from the BAME communities, then we are, in my own personal view, I think we are doomed for failure. Because when you look at the whole system of the United Kingdom, the royal family, predominantly white, the political system, predominantly white, the NHS, the hierarchical status in the NHS, if you do, and you look at board members and organization, predominantly white. Banking, finance, if you go down to Liverpool Street and you go into investment banking, predominantly. So if you want to make an impact and make changes, you have to be able to communicate with people of all different races, all different racial backgrounds, and help them to understand the impact of BAME health. So when BAME health is not only the physical health, it's also the mental well-being. And the perception of that, and stereotypes, and the silent racism that exists, and it exists in workplace, and it can have a huge impact on people's mental health and their confidence in themselves, and how they're able to cope, how they're able to apply for jobs. That's all about health. So it's a combination of many different aspects. So it's not only limited to within an NHS infrastructure. We're talking even about health. We're talking about simple things like having the same access like everybody else. So if you want a job, you should be able to get a job because you can do it, not because of your particular shape and look and all of that. It's because you can do it. And the point of BHC is to actually work with these organizations in order to change that narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not about separating and segregating and saying we need this, and it's not providing a service just for those people affected, but actually saying, just like the name of this podcast is called, Together We Can. So it's all about reaching out to those organizations. Is that right?
Yes, and there'll be a knock-on effect, if you know what I mean. There's a knock-on effect. Whether we are in the process of writing reports and journals and stuff like that, and that have a knock-on effect. It have a knock-on effect because clinical trials, pharmaceutical companies will be able to understand what are the concerns we have for our health and actually invite us. We have written off to quite a few pharmaceutical companies, and they are interested. The problem is COVID is here again, so they have to change up, and most people are working from home. But there's a lot of dialogue going on about, especially in regards to diabetes, especially in regards to prostate cancer, which affect men, especially in regards to things like thalassemia, sickle cell. Their pharmaceutical companies want to know, wow, do you have people who can work with us? Yeah. I had a company who wrote to me recently about bone health. Yeah. Oh, they want to create a calcium component that specifically will target the BAME communities. And I said, but that is a sort of a broad spectrum, and therefore you have to give a little bit more defined details than that. We do have a Samantha who is orthopedic surgeon, and certainly we will take her on that journey. So having people from different backgrounds, they don't need to be clinical. What it is together we can all discuss the risk that is facing BAME communities in their daily challenges of life.
Now, I must pick up on this point. You mentioned systematic racism. Obviously, that can have a huge knock-on effect on people's mental health. And it's certainly something I felt myself during the pandemic, when we saw the horrible crime that was committed, when we saw the loss of George Floyd, and also, the deaths of Black lives after that. Is that something that the BAME Health Collaborative can actually help on? Because it is such a big mental toll when we're seeing these news headlines. We're really feeling that, aren't we, in our very core? And I kind of, I've seen it myself, that we carry this feeling around with us every day. It's not just when these events occur, but as you say, it's systematic. It's things that are well ingrained in many areas of society and in workplaces. So is there something that the BHC is doing that will actually help towards resolving this problem?
Okay, so Black Lives Matter. And it certainly matter in all aspect. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And it is, the gravity of what happened in the United States it has a lot of historical perspective that is laced within the unity of the people there. And also here, we cannot not say that we don't face levels of racism here. But BHC is coming from a different, completely standpoint. And I want to make that clear because I've been asked that question many times. So BHC is coming from a completely different standpoint. We are not going to be a reactive organization. So, reactive organization, we are not doing that. We are not going to be firefighters running out with a big hose to out the fire. We are going way before the fire. We want to be way before the fire. What do you plan to do that will impact on BAME communities in regards to health? What are you planning to do? Can we be part of that? Institutional racism is something that is so deep within the processes and the systems, yeah, that now it is starting to gently dismantle, but it's not quick enough, yeah. However, what we are doing is working. We have like Jane Hidley on. We have a few people who are on board who are champions of change, and it's getting them to be part organization. That's why we have collaboration. Collaboration is not doing it on your own. Working with other charities, CIOs, companies, local government, SMEs, anyone, we are willing to work with you to look at your policies, look at your workshops, look at your board training, look at your recruitment process. What is your recruitment process? How do you actually recruit people? What is the retention process? How many people go before the GMC, the MC? How many people go before the tribunals? How many people, young people, elderly, middle age, who end up going to the having a criminal record, and it's because they have a mental health issue rather than a criminal health issue, or maybe addicted to some sort of drug, and they don't have help. Yeah, so we need to look at in a much more define area. We have to do that. And in order for BHC to be functional and give value, we have to actually be at the beginning of discussions, or at least in the core of discussions, rather than running in to firefight. And I have got no issues with those who want to firefight, but we want to be, I'm very clear about this. We must be at the policy procedure framework. We want to be at the consultation stage. Yeah. And if you already have your policies in place, we want to be reviewing that. We want to actually ignite that change. And we do support all our brothers and sisters out there who are facing racism on a daily basis. Yeah. But there are organizations specifically designed for that and have the expertise to actually address that. And so therefore we must recognize what they can do and what we can do and how we can extend our expertise to help them in delivering their vision and their mission statement and their vision. So to summarize it, we are looking at the inequalities, the disparities of health, the impact it have on the mental health and well-being of individuals in this society. And it's not acceptable anymore that we are given less treatment. We are treated less than. It is not acceptable anymore to give us a piece of paper and it's not written in a language that we all, that community understand. It is not acceptable that elderly are just being put into homes and don't have a support system for their community and their culture. There's something about cultural sensitivity, and that has been lost along the way.
Michaeline, you speak so beautifully, and it really is fascinating listening to everything that the BHC can do. And I really do think that, you know, you are going to have such a positive impact on all the areas that you've mentioned. And like you say, you're really getting to the core issues. And I liked your when you mentioned about the firefighting, and they're both important things, but you've really demonstrated beautifully how you're going right to the very core so that those problems can be ironed out, but right from the center, which is what we absolutely need. Now, I'm wondering, because you mentioned that anyone is welcome to get involved, you know, it's not strictly BAME only. That's not what this is. So how can people actually get involved? Who are you looking for?
And that's it. Looking for people who have the passion for change. And there's no age limitation here. Passion for change. And, you know, it's info@bamehealthcollaborative.org.uk. Passion for change. Looking to help us to actually address some of or any area. I mean, it could be community, it could be sports, it could be, you know, helping. We have a new project. We're looking for young people now to help them to be, you know, interested in healthcare, because healthcare is vast. Pharmaceuticals, you know, you could be radiology, you could be a manager, you could be, there is so much. We could just throw out so many different disciplines in regards to health. If you're into beauty, we can look at dermatology, there is plastic surgery. We need to encourage more of our BAME communities to be more active, involved in healthcare. There and doing that and giving them that, you know, opportunity to, and not only that, to talk to some of the healthcare practitioners, even for journalism or acting or anything, to have a mentor within that, really helps them to feel that confidence, because we need to do that. And before we tie up here, there is something that is really, you know, biting me at the moment, and that is dyslexia. Yeah. So dyslexia, a lot of male, Caribbean male, you know, because of the teaching of then and in the 50s and right now, suffer from dyslexia, and no one picked up on it. And they're incredibly bright, they're incredibly dynamic, and no one picked up on it, and it impacted on their health. It impacted on their self-confidence. It impacted on their wanting to apply for jobs because of the inability to actually express themselves in writing that narrative. And so BAME Health is very broad. We're looking to make sure that those people who are listening now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You were not given the right tools, you know, but we can help. And we need people who are going to be champion of this cause.
Absolutely. Really, really important point there as well about dyslexia, because it is, as you say, often overlooked. What challenges do you think you face going forward trying to implement the amazing things that you're trying to accomplish?
The truth of the matter, most of the trustees and ambassadors and community leads, we all are we are in employment. So that's the number one thing. It is allocating that time and working through the action plans and all of that, and generate funding as well. We need to generate funding, because most of the funding is coming from me, to generate the funding to go forward. But that will come. That will come. That's okay. That will come. But most of us are quite engaged. But the beauty of it all is that everyone is willing to put their hands in. Everyone is willing to take some time out of their busy schedule, like Monel is doing right now, to take the time. And you, as our new community lead, taking this evening off, when you could be doing something else, to be here because you believe in what we're doing. And it's that belief, to know that it will make a difference and make a change in one person's life. If we could get one GP one GP to actually look at blood pressure in a different way and not prescribe the same old blood pressure medicine, we have won.
Yeah,
If we could get
absolutely.
if we could get a mother and a father in their home to call their gran or their elderly aunt and say, I need you to walk around the house, and we'll do it on WhatsApp, we've won.
Mm, mm.
It's not a numbers game, it's milestones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have in fact got my auntie involved, haven't I? And she's hopefully going
Yes.
to be working with you guys soon.
Yes, and Monel's daughter as well. I am just drafting out something for Monel's daughter to have a look at. I want to finish it off, but I've been really busy with the outbreak. But I drafted this for her to look at, and your aunt as well, who's going to help us with the fitness. And Winston is really passionate. Winston Ellis, who's one of our ambassadors, he's been getting his mom really keep fit, moving, the mobility, and that's what we want. We want to do this because Christmas is coming, COVID is coming, and people will be maybe back in a lockdown. Could possibly be in a lockdown. I don't want to say. Government, I didn't say anything. But it could be. And what we don't want is for people to have that. If you're not mobile, you're actually more likely to have ill health. So we need them to have a bit of movement and improve their mental well-being.
Yeah, and as you say, that can just be a phone call, so some of the work that you're doing, it could just be as much as someone having that conversation with a family member and making them feel that they're not alone, and getting them up, going for a walk with them. There's so much scope for this, and I really want those of you watching to pick up on that, and maybe take some of this on board today. But also, if you are feeling as passionate as we are, then get yourself involved and use that email address and reach out and see how you could actually help this collaboration grow and achieve all of the amazing things that it wants to achieve. We're going to have to close now, and I really don't want to, because I think there's so much more that we could talk about, and it's been really inspiring. So thank you so much for telling us more about the organisation and about your hopes for the future. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers today?
I just want to say that if you have an innovative idea, if you have a project, if you have something that you wanted to do, please contact us. We want to hear about it, because therefore we can participate and support you. Let's do it. And again, I want to thank TV3 Bangala for their great work. I want to thank you, Emily, for being a fantastic host. And I want to thank you, Monel and Trisha, and all of the BHC family for really supporting this, because I cannot do it without them. And so together we can.
Together we can. Thank you so much, Michaeline. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, TV3, for having us here on Together We Can. See you next time.
Together.